Learning English through stories. The story of Santa Claus. Chapter 1. The origin of Santa Claus. The story of Santa Claus has evolved over centuries, blending historical figures, folklore, and traditions from various cultures. The origin of Santa Claus can be traced back to a 4th century Christian bishop named Saint Nicholas, who lived in the area now known as Turkey. Saint Nicholas was known for his generosity and kindness, especially toward children and the less fortunate. One of the most famous stories about him involves secretly giving bags of gold to a poor man to provide dowries for his 3 daughters, thus saving them from a life of destitution. He was very religious from an early age and devoted his life entirely to Christianity. He is usually portrayed as a bearded bishop in canonical robes. This is where the early image of Santa Claus came from: give things to help poor people. Early representations of the gift giver from church history and folklore, especially Saint Nicholas, merged with the character Father Christmas to create the mythical character known to the rest of the English-speaking world as Santa Claus. In American tradition, Santa Claus always arrives happily on Christmas Eve in a sleigh pulled by reindeer. He climbs into the house from the chimney, leaves gifts for the children, and eats the food left by the children for him. The rest of the year he was busy making gifts and supervising the children's behavior. In France, Santa Claus looks almost exactly like other Santa Clauses, wearing red and white clothes. This image also inspired the Coca-Cola Company to create an image of Santa Claus that spread around the world in the 1930s. In some cultures, Santa is accompanied by elves and gnomes. In the legend of Iceland, there is not just one Santa Claus, but a total of 13 Santa Clauses, each with a different personality. Some are naughty and lively, and some are kind and gentle. In many countries, on Christmas Eve, children prepare empty containers so that Santa Claus can fill them with small gifts, such as toys and candies. In the United States, children hang Christmas stockings on the fireplace on Christmas Eve, because Santa Claus has said that he will come down the chimney and put gifts in the socks before Christmas Eve. In other countries, children place empty shoes outdoors so Santa can deliver gifts on Christmas Eve. Interestingly, the depiction of Santa Claus at the North Pole reflects people's impression of industrial progress after the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century. In the early 20th century, some images of Santa Claus depicted him making toys by hand, like a craftsman in a small workshop. Later, Santa Claus evolved into having many elves as helpers. At the same time, the modern assembly line mass production of toys also appeared, but the toys were still made by hand by each elf in the traditional way. By the end of the 20th century, the Western public had fully accepted the reality of mass machine production.
Chapter 2. The story of receiving gift in Christmas. The story of receiving a gift from Santa Claus is a magical and cherished part of many people's Christmas traditions. While the details of the story can vary from person to person, the essence usually revolves around the excitement and wonder associated with Santa's gift-giving on Christmas Eve. Once upon a time, in a cozy little town, there lived a family that eagerly awaited the arrival of Christmas each year. The air was filled with the scent of pine from the Christmas tree, and colorful lights adorned houses, creating a festive atmosphere. In this family, there were children named Emily and Jake, who were filled with anticipation as Christmas approached. They had heard the tales of Santa Claus, the jolly man who traveled all the way from the North Pole on his magical sleigh pulled by reindeer. As Christmas Eve arrived, Emily and Jake couldn't contain their excitement. They hung their stockings by the fireplace, hoping that Santa would visit their home that night. Before bedtime, they carefully wrote heartfelt letters to Santa, expressing their gratitude for the joy and magic he brought to the world. With stars shining brightly in the night sky, Emily and Jake nestled into their beds, their dreams filled with visions of sugar plums and the promise of Christmas morning surprises. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, a soft jingling of bells echoed through the house. Santa Claus, in his red suit and white beard, silently entered the living room. He carefully placed beautifully wrapped presents under the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree. Santa glanced at the letters from Emily and Jake, smiling at their innocence and pure hearts. With a twinkle in his eye, Santa tiptoed out of the house, leaving only the faintest traces of magic in the air. The children, awakened by the sound of the bells, rushed to the living room, their eyes widening with amazement at the sight of the presents beneath the tree. Santa came! Santa came! They exclaimed, their hearts brimming with joy. They unwrapped their gifts, discovering exactly what they had wished for. The room echoed with laughter and the warmth of family love. From that Christmas onward, Emily and Jake continued to believe in the enchantment of Santa Claus and the spirit of giving. The story of that magical Christmas Eve became a treasured part of their family folklore, passed down from generation to generation. And so, the tale of receiving a gift from Santa Claus continues to bring joy to countless families around the world, reminding everyone of the magic and wonder that Christmas brings.